Hi, Rupert.
Hi, Mitesh.
Um, could you help me, as Francis puts, verify one of my explorations? Um, the context of this question is, in today's meditation, you mentioned that be sensitive to thinking and feeling pulling you away from the current experience. And guided by this, when I explored that once I'm pulled into thinking, the interaction feels real. Like there are thoughts, characters, there is stage, setting. It seems to give a three-dimensional view, and I'm enchanted into that experience. Although after coming out, I can look back and see I was there, but I was still enchanted, not knowing that I was in a palace which was not real. Once I'm out there, once I'm out of it, it's poof. Even while coming out, there's a glimpse of how these characters seem to coexist on this stage, but I can see it while I'm coming out. It's a very small glimpse. I could see it that, wait a minute, there's just thoughts. One thought seems to think that the other thought is present. And after coming out, it's clear that it was made of thought, and the thought arose in me. So this whole construct just breaks down. Yet this the going back, the going in, coming back happens rarely. It happens less frequently. But I was just wondering if you could help verify this experience, this exploration, and also talk about the sensitivity that you mentioned to, I don't want to say avoid having this experience to begin with.
Yes. The sensitivity that I was referring to, Mitesh, was just when we're sitting quietly and nothing is being said for 5 or 10 minutes, sometimes there is a tendency for thought to wake up and to take off either into the past or into the future. It's not possible to think about the present. Thought is either thinking about the past or the present. Now, why does it do this? Why does thought take off into the past or the future? And unless it is required to do so by the current circumstance. But if we're all sitting here in this meeting, our attention is not required by the world. So there is no reason for a thought to venture off into the past or the future. Why does it do so? Because the now, that is our current experience, is felt to be insufficient, boring. And therefore, thought is venturing off into the past or the future to try to find something that is satisfactory. In other words, something that will make us happy. So although this little excursion of thought into the past or the future, this little daydream or fantasy, or it seems like nothing, it's innocuous. But that is the seed of suffering, because all suffering is resistance to the now. Whether it's a massive resistance to an event that is taking place, or just the subtlest escape, the subtlest feeling of boredom, this escape through thinking, it's the same. Both of them are resistances. And it just this very slight feeling of boredom or restlessness, we are basically saying, I don't like what is present. I want what is not present. All our suffering, the big explosions of suffering, the tiny little feelings of lack, it's all a variation of, I don't like what is present. I want what is not present. So that is why when we're sitting like this together in silence, it's very good to be aware. That's why I suggested it, to become very sensitive to these little excursions that thought takes away from the now into the past or future. That is the activity of our suffering. Whether it's just a little resistance because the meditation is considered to be boring, or whether it's a massive resistance to an event that takes place in our lives. It doesn't matter. It's resistance. All suffering, all psychological suffering is resistance.
So are you suggesting to be sensitive to the feeling which brings up the thought and I drift away into that thought? Because
be sensitive to your resistance.
Okay.
It is, your resistance is not arising on behalf of you awareness. It is not awareness that is saying, I don't like what is present. Awareness is one with our current experience. Awareness cannot separate itself from experience and stand back from it and say, I don't like it. Awareness cannot do that. Only thought does that. So that the I don't like what is present, I want what is not present thought does not arise on behalf of I awareness. Well, what other I is there? When we say I don't like what is present, what I doesn't like what is present? On whose behalf does that thought arise? If you investigate that one, you won't find it. That one is created, or rather imagined, with the I don't like it thought. So when that one is seen to be an illusion, the I don't like it thought comes to an end. We just find ourselves at one with our current experience, responding appropriately. Not from a sense of lack, not from a sense of resistance, but just a natural, intelligent, loving response to the current situation, if it requires a response at all.
Okay.
Nice to see you both.
Could you answer? Could you talk about my verification of the observation that I was talking about, where the drifting away into the thinking, like it seems real, like the more attention I put into my interaction with my
that drifting away into the thought, the reason you drift away with the thought is because your current experience is considered insufficient. Remember, Blaise Pascal said something like this: all of mankind's problems, or the vast majority of mankind's problems, stem from the fact that a person cannot sit alone in a room without thinking for 5 minutes. So you're sitting there, you feel a sense of lack. Something is missing. I cannot be happy in this current situation. I'll escape from it. How can I escape? Through thinking. Your thought takes you away from the now into an imaginary past or an imaginary future. That is the activity of suffering. That's all suffering is, psychological suffering, the escape through thought from our current experience.
Right.
So this is why with a group of people like this, it may not be the huge emotional reactions anymore, but just the little feeling of boredom, sitting for 5 minutes together in silence. That is the activity of suffering. So we become sensitive to that.